Okay, back at it. Round two, boys. Okay, so I'm assuming this is basically a whole new video, even though I stopped a few minutes ago. Let's see. Okay. So 11, use AI. AI use favors. Use of favors. More work on AI use of favors. Trying to finish up AI use of favors. Oh, yes. Update favors. Thank you, Alex. Okay, so time-wise, I got about 2 hours before I gotta go to work. I should have some more time tonight. Question is, should I pound down an energy drink tonight so I can try to get all the things I want done by beta patch time? Don't know. Gotta focus though. So we've got magnificent gifts, honor nobleman, and then we want corruption. The corruption option is supposed to be like bottom of the barrel type stuff. You will actually make a game, Demian? Yes, that's true. Let's play a Master General. I am going to, sooner or later. And the way I see it, MNT 2.0 is kind of my way of. I'm going to keep working on that too, but it's going to be my way of kind of building the community, the foundation for the community that I want, build the financial base, and build the brain trust, right, of all the people that are going to A, give me ideas, which is important, and B, just as important, people who could plausibly work on the project with me one day. And the two options will be Antiquities Universalis or the Fantasy World Simulator. What would be great is if I could get a stats person to help me do some stats and do a more detailed survey of the audience to determine where the most monetization possibility lies. That's a good question, Petreo. We'll leave that to another day. As tempting as it is to answer that question. I mean, the idea is that the lore would be emergent, right? That's the whole point, is you don't necessarily want to tie it. So you could have a procedurally generated emergent lore system so that each world would have its own lore and its own history and things of that nature. So that would be the cool part. And I'm interested in that aspect because of my background in novels and writing and things like that. Remember, I'm a literary mind. I was never a mathematical code computer type mind, so that especially is interesting to me. I'm going to be streaming for about another 2 hours, Battle as. Yeah, let's play classical antiquities. So imagine MNT 2.0 in antiquities. Thanks, Luca. Okay, so now we need the corruption part of it. If limits has country flag equals self-conscious, then we don't want to be dishing out corruption. That means they're already, well, we don't necessarily have to do it that way. We can just check for corruption directly, because you can be self-conscious for a long period of time and actually have your corruption relatively under control. So actually we want base corruption score 20 maybe? 25 tops. Yes, Peter Weiss, man, proper trade. God, that would be so much fun to work on. So I actually already built a prototype system for the new trade idea. And it works the same way that I built my road system. So, well, not really the road system, but the way the AI evaluates where to build roads. And the idea is, imagine the map is a lake, right? And you, the way I calculate the best and most ideal place for roads to go is based on all of the multitudes of places in the nearby area which have relevance and meaning, right? Economic activity and potential. And the way the system works is you take a rock, you take you take each of those provinces and then you drop them in the lake, and then they make ripple effects based on the size of their economic relevance, right? And then all of those ripples go outward, and then each of those ripples has an effect on each other province and its economic relevance. And what you end up with is a composite of importance throughout the entire area. And it shows you like channels of where the most economic importance is, like veins, going through a body. And then those are the places that the AI build their roads. And so a similar system could work with trade, in which the best way for trade to flow would be based on that kind of composite of the landscape, right? Anyway. Gotta focus. Corruption. Corruption favor. So 25 corruption, don't even bother. So you must not have 25 corruption in order to give this favor as an AI. So yeah, on the agenda right now is I'm training the AI to use favors. Specifically right now, offer low level cabinet seats. So if you have over 25 corruption, don't even bother giving the favor out. Too costly, too dangerous. And so that's the exclusionary factor. Now I need the weights, and to do that, I need to grab my base value here. Set down here for now. So lower the corruption, the more feasible it is. Trying to figure out the best way to do this. If the corruption favor should kind of be like the favor of last resort. I'm trying to figure out the criteria. Here's the criteria for present gifts. Haven't really figured out the criteria for corruption yet. A simple way could simply be if neither of these other two options are feasible, then simply, I don't know. How much you are under the equilibrium. That's an interesting notion, Korean. Actually, that could be a good criteria. Let's see, how would I calculate the actual equilibrium? I had written that score out somewhere. Stumped. Wasn't expecting to be stumped on this one. I'm trying to find the foundational variable here that matters the most. So maybe if these two don't equal 1, then simply fall back on corruption. Right. If I can't pay you off and I can't honor you, I'll sell you access. Yeah, eventually, if I end up making my own game and giving it away as long, it'll no longer be called the new game developer. It'll have to become something else. It'll become a documentary and no longer a autobiography in action. So yeah, if I were going to make the equilibrium, yeah, get the total estate corruption values. There was a conversion rate. I don't remember what it was though. So because remember, plus 0.05 ends up settling in to a certain amount of corruption. Let me try this. Let me find a conversion rate again. So Granada currently gets, no, don't root out corruption. God damn it. Okay. So we're practical terms 0. Total corruption change is 0.46. Now let's add corruption. Oh, -6 corruption at 100. Okay. All right, that's good. Look at the 1.5 at 25. So the conversion rate, hold on, let me dig through my variables to figure out what we're working with here. Oh no. Let's see. Path estates. Here we go. So here's the thing is we need to use the variables that we currently have. Let me make sure the variables under the hood corresponds to what we have in game. Let me save here. Oh, are we not live on Discord right now? No, I think we're live on Discord. Anyone have the Discord stuff? I'm not doing voice on Discord though. It's just people, able to talk about stuff related to the various part of the mod and the new game developer and stuff like that. Okay. So juggling a lot at once right now. Privilege, corruption, aggregate. That's the total aggregate. I don't need that. Actually, I'm curious. I'm curious what the value is for Granada. This could answer the question. Privilege, corruption, aggregate. Privilege, corruption, aggregate. Yeah, so 44. Currently I have 46. Oh, centralization efforts. Yeah. So it's pretty close. Pretty close. I did see Roman's Paradox. I did see his video. It was pretty good. It was fair. I agreed on every point, pretty much. I thought I was muted. Oh, well, I'll leave it on. People said I. Someone said to turn it back on. Okay, so BG. What is the variable for corruption again? You see how this can get a bit confusing. Oh, privilege corruption B. Privilege corruption BG. 24. In game I have 23. Okay, so it's close enough. So I have a corruption aggregate. Privilege corruption aggregate right here. Oh, you know what? An easier way to do this is like it may be possible to get the corruption to export the corruption modifier. And then just export that when I do the calculation. And then use that to calculate the equilibrium value. And then I can wait it, Jesus. Okay, first order of business. Okay, this is the modifier I want to capture. I don't remember the syntax exactly. Let me save this somewhere. Export to variable. Reduction. Modifier. Okay, so this is the syntax equal modifier, production efficiency. That would just have yearly corruption. And theoretically, that could work. And then we would be able to get the total modifier based on all corruption sources. Then we can use that to calculate the equilibrium. Once we have the equilibrium, then we go ahead and inform the AI about what they should be offering. Then we can find the deficit between actual current corruption and corruption equilibrium. Good grief. So now I need to fire a test event, rig up a test event. I'm not looking directly into your souls. I'm looking at my other screen. Let's just go ahead, dig up. I pop test events. Tests. Where'd they go? Where did my test events go? There we go. Goodbye. Export the variable. Glasses in the way. All corruption sources. Let's declare it right here. Let's just do this so it shows up as my first variable. All right, let's see if we get the proper numbers. All corruption sources. Really corruption. Save. Will it be better to write a scripted effect to calculate how far you are from the resting point? That could be useful. Yeah, we could just do that. Make it a generalized tool, because I imagine there's other situations where we would plausibly want to have that data. So yeah, we can do that. Right now, we just need to test to see if the tools we want to use are actually operable and able to do what we want them to do. These are tools we actually will need in the future once I enable state corruption events and things like that. So it's good that we're doing it now, because we'll have to do it later anyway. Let's see. All right, so let's pull up that event that I made to test the scripted effect in question. It worked. Awesome. Yes. Cool. Yay, congratulations, Saurav, on graduating. You are now still unemployable. Go to college, at which point you will still be unemployable. Then you can either go to grad school or take an unpaid internship, at which point you probably still won't be employable, but maybe, we'll see. Okay, so this works. Let's see, the conversion rate was, let me scroll up with you guys. So a negative 1.5 gives you 25. See how that compares to Mamluks. Mamluks. So they're at 131.34 rats. 2. Interesting. The Mamluks are already almost there. Oh, congratulations on your internship actually being paid then too. So yeah, 1.3 generates about 22. So yeah, 1.5 generates about 25. Yeah, okay. So conversion rate is that makes sense. Conversion rate, you end up with 0.06 equaling 1 corruption. Equals 1 corruption. So yeah, all we have to do is just I need some coffee is what I need. Yeah, so all you do is just multiply. Hold on, I got some customers I gotta talk to. Yes, coffee is necessary while I resolve this issue here. Yeah, token Cossacks. Cossacks and is one of the most important ones, and common sense, two big ones. Ethan, that's a good observation. The bad part with me is I put sugar in coffee. Sugar and coffee in my coffee. I haven't had my coffee, obviously. I put sugar and cream in my coffee, and so when I over caffeinate, I make myself fatter. Okay, so what was I doing? Okay, so easy math. If my yearly gain is this, right, and I want to calculate my equilibrium, all I have to do is this. It should be, right? And then I should get my equilibrium. So Granada's current is this, and this is how much you need per. Right, so, oops, not, yeah, no, that's not the right math. Stupid. I know it's with these numbers. More coffee. Must have more coffee. Oh no, that's right. That's the right math. I just punched it in wrong. So I should end up with something like 7.33 corruption. Let's test that hypothesis. Actually, I can test that hypothesis here. So let's just do with the Mamluks real quick. Their total corruption gain per year is, let's see, 0.2326 plus tons from the greater nobles. 0.06. Close. Yes. Yeah, basically. Okay. So calculating equilibrium is super duper easy, it turns out. Way easier than I thought it would be. So all corruption, all sources. We'll turn this into a scripted effect in a bit. Or actually, yeah, the easy thing to do would just be to pull up some of our scripted effects, put the scripted effect in here, and then write it from the scripted effect. In case, for all of you non-modders out there, remember scripted effects, I guess, are like functions. And for all of you non-math people out there like me, basically scripted effects takes a block of code that you want to use a bunch of times, and instead of having to copy paste that block of code a billion times every time you want to use it, you just make a little abbreviation and stick that abbreviation in, and then it calls on the scripted effect with that big block of code. It's just cleaner. But once scripted effects get too big, they have really strange engine issues. So you got to be careful not to make them too big. We'll go with privilege effects. We'll stick it in here somewhere. Gets, we'll call it gets corruption equilibrium and difference. So this will be two calculations, right? And then we'll stick this here. So I'm going to, yes, call this scripted after I spell it right. Yeah, you can't really put a scripted effect inside of a scripted effect. You can, but it gets weird. Okay, so let's take what we've got. Let's take this 2, just so the underlying calculations will be here. And we'll just comment it out. Future reference or anyone who is checking. Okay, export the variable, corruption all sources. Which equals corruption equilibrium value. We're going to declare it, and we're going to set that variable to corruption all sources. And then we are simply going to divide corruption equilibrium, which is currently only set to corruption all sources. We're going to divide that by 0.06. Is there any way to prevent the reformation from happening? Not that I know of. Again, that's Harper's territory. It's one of the big things I'm reluctant about when it comes to getting into all the religion stuff is that I don't have background really with even, it's embarrassing to say, but like the vanilla system of religion for the most part. It's, you know, the whole Reformation centers and stuff like that. Well, Islam almost had a Reformation of their own, and it failed. So why couldn't the Protestant Reformation hypothetically fail? So I don't see why it shouldn't, but all right. So now that'll calculate corruption equilibrium. Now we need to declare a new variable, which will equal corruption current, right? And this will be, this is actually some useful stuff. I'm glad I'm doing this now. This is going to be based on the current corruption of your country. So we're going to do another export to variable, which equals the variable we just declared. And I think it's just called corruption. So we're going to take this vanilla variable, export it as corruption current. And then we're going to declare yet another variable, which equals corruption disparity, corruption. So this is whether you're above or below the equilibrium. Korean, you'd have to ask Flopsy. A lot of optimization and stuff like that. That's an interesting notion, Ethan, having the Pope pass reforms so that you don't need a reformation. I guess that's what's supposed to happen. Anyway, not to get distracted. Corruption disparity, we'll call it. How much corruption is above or below the equilibrium? I'm going to set this value to the equilibrium. Oops. And then we're going to subtract this by our current corruption, and then we have the disparity. And then we can use it to inform our AI decision making. Yay! First we gotta We gotta go ahead and test fire this event. Make sure that we get all the right variables, right value. Okay, so we're gonna save here. Sure. Well, actually, this is a bad example. Let's go. Let's go to corruption 10. We'll test it, and then we'll shoot up to corruption like 50 and test it. Ethan, seriously. Maybe we can add that to the endless list of stuff the team has to do. I should see what's going on in Discord. What's going on in Discord? Yeah, we need a new picture for center of production. For sure. Meanwhile, in India, what's playing? Yeah, in India and China, we need some kind of disease outbreak or something to that effect, because they did have, conventional localized disease outbreaks and stuff like that. But not entirely sure how to handle it. Just to help keep China and India in check. Let's close the door in case the Mongols come running downstairs. Okay, so we're at the Mamluks. We're going to fire that event. That doesn't look right. Corruption. That corruption current to 10. And then subtract corruption equilibrium by 10. That could. No, that could be right. Let me see. That's an interesting idea, token corruption affecting institution spread. That could be a worthwhile idea. I'd do it right now, but I'd have to check with Maloran with it, probably. Trying to remember what. Look more corruption. I screwed something up. Corruption all sources. So corruption current. Oh, I need the multiple. I need. What? Corruption equilibrium. And divided by this value. I don't know. No. What did I do? Why do I have two of these? This is supposed to be corruption disparity. That was weird. I don't know why I did that or how that showed up the way it did. So corruption disparity set to 0. Right, and then this has to set to equilibrium. And then I subtract this. And then it shows me the distance I have to go to get to my equilibrium. Okay. That was a silly mistake. I'll run it by Malorn right now, the idea with corruption in institutions. Okay, also, what do you think about corruption reducing the rates of institution game? Excuse me. Okay, yeah, corruption disparity. That looks accurate. Cool. So, Mamluks are at 10. They should be at 22.333. Yeah, cool. Conversely, if they were at 34, oh, that don't look right. Well, let's check the save file. Corruption disparity, negative 21, WTF. Corruption equilibrium, 12. No, I screwed some up. Hold on. Let me go back to corrupt 10. Let me fire this event again. This doesn't seem like it should be difficult math. But mathing, that's what screws me up every time. No, that's not right. Corruption equilibrium. Corruption all sources divided by 6. So the equilibrium should not be 12.33. Corruption all sources, disparity. Currents. What are we doing wrong here? Corruption all sources. I'm running out of time. Corruption all sources. Corruption equilibrium. Corruption equilibrium is equal to corruption all sources, which in the case of the Mamluks is going to be 23.333. No, like 1.3. And then x divided by 0.06. And it's going to yield, all right, let's make absolutely sure, 1.3 divided by 0.06. 21.66 or whatever. All right, so that is corruption equilibrium. Then we get our current corruption. Corruption equilibrium. Current corruption, let's say it's 10. Current corruption. And then corruption disparity is going to be, it should not be hard. Corruption equilibrium, 0.66 minus 10, 11.66. That should be our disparity. Not. Sorry, I'm not getting around to all your questions. Actually, the token, I think you're probably right. They're not even local modified, like, because eventually I'm going to have corruption events, right? And so when those corruption events roll through, maybe they can paralyze institution spread for a short period of time or in specific places. That would make it more interesting than just, a static, institutions suck at spreading because your value is currently at this. But anyway, not to get distracted. Corruption equilibrium, current corruption, subtraction. This is not difficult math. Let's try again. It shows up properly here, I think. Here, let's make sure we're not screwing what we get. Sometimes we end up with the wrong save for whatever reason. Here, I'm going to just purge all of this here. No, I'm getting rid of you. Go away. I don't like you. There. Oops. I should definitely comment this. So Mamluks, human, yes. It is raining finally in Florida. Yeah. Okay, so corruption. All sources, 10. Corruption disparity, wrong. I know this. What? Oh, fuck. I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong. That blows. So what's wrong is that it's not calculating the total gross sources. It's capturing the total net sources. I know how to solve this problem. It's annoying, but what I need is total gross. It's giving total net. Yes. Yeah, sort of. It is an example of PDOC's math because if you went to, for instance, all of your total modifiers here, I bet you anything. Oh no, yearly corruption. It's only giving. Yeah, so there it is. Oh no, yeah. So these are all the net gains. Yeah, but not the total gross. So yeah, so all we really have to do is this. Capture this variable, and then we just add that amount of corruption to the equilibrium. So change variable, which equals corruption equilibrium by currents, corruption currents, right? No, wait, this makes it easier. it already calculates. Fine, I'm going with this. I think you guys probably see what the game is already giving me is the disparity. But I can just stick with this math, right? So because they're giving me 0.74, if you divide that by 0.06, you already get the disparity. But it's not that much more math to just go with what I have right here. That's kind of funny. Okay. Let's try again. Hate math. If it didn't exist, I wish you could do math with numbers and letters. Now, because literature and writing and things like that, they're all intuitive, you know. Math is much less intuitive. It's all like logical and things. I always wanted to have a mathematical mind as opposed to a literary mind. Okay, now it should be accurate. It took way longer than it should have, but we learned something. Scooby. Now it should be good. Corruption. Not all sources. That's incorrectly. So it should be cut. It should be net corruption. Okay, sorry. Yep, there we go. Disparity is this. Current corruption is this. Equilibrium is this. Okay. So we're good there. Now let's go ahead and jack corruption to 34. Oh, corrupt 34. Test event. Oops, I guess I messed something up. Something's up with my calculations. Okay. What did I do wrong with math? Corruption equilibrium. It's going to equal corruption all sources. Oh, wait, I know what's wrong. Derp. Stupid. I have to wait for it to adjust. Now let's try it. Looks like it's going to still be wrong. Man, I'm spending way too much time on this one problem. But again, it's a tool that is probably necessary. Corruption current. Yes, it works. Corruption disparity. Good. All right, good. It works. Done. Finished. Yes, done. Finished. Yes, done. Yes. Yes. And leave these calculations here just for reference. All right, so now we have this handy dandy thing, which determines these handy dandy things. And then I'll take that thing and I'm going to put it in the thing over here. So, call those values. Are we done? Peter, I hate you. My OCD is weak. Okay. So I get those handy dandy variables. I'm going to go ahead and move my little scripted effect over to. I'm going to grab this just so I can see it on a separate screen. And I can reference the variables there as necessary. The one that really matters is corruption disparity. Okay. So we get those values. And then if limits check variable which equals never mind, we're not out of the woods yet. We got to calculate yet another variable. Screw me. You will understand momentarily. So, yuck. Corruption cost. How do I calculate corruption cost? Corruption cost, corruption cost, corruption cost. Is equal to noble weight share times 10. So actually, it's just okay. Simple enough. If 1, 1. If 2, 2. If 3, 3. If 4, 4. All right, that's pretty simple. Okay, so pull in these calculations. Corruption cost is equal to greater than noble weight share times 10. Now, if the disparity is equal to the corruption cost, let's do this differently. Set new variable. Do the same way we did it with the money. Set variable. Declare a new variable. Corruption. Declare it. This will make sense in a second. I'm going to set this to corruption disparity. Then I'm going to divide variable, which equals corruption. Oh god, my fingers. So again, this will tell me how much below my corruption is. So now I just take this and I compare it to a value. If the value is, at least 0.75, that means it's just a little bit over. And change variable, which equals whatever the determining variable is. Again, corruption weight. Doink. Change by 1. Disparity. Disparity cost. Disparity cost. Disparity cost. Limit check variable, corruption variable, change variable, favor G and corruption weight. Okay. But this should work. So what I'm going to do actually is, since we want this to be kind of a last resort type of variable, we are going to, by default, make it difficult to achieve. Yeah. And we'll put it up around the top just for organization's sake. 1. So the further you are below the equilibrium, the more likely the AI is to take it. There. And then we're going to go ahead and, since this is the option of last resort, we're going to take this. If limits check variable which equals this value equals 1, and then check variable which equals not gifts, not prestige check. There we go. No, not prestige check. Dagnammit. Honor nobleman weight. There. Value equals 1. So, well, no, this isn't or. This is both. If neither of these values equal at least 1, then we go ahead and change our variable. So what that means is that we set natural counter inertia, and if neither of the other favors can be used, then we undo it. And then if we have sufficiently low corruption below, and then we also have below the equilibrium, and then we also have other conditions which are pushing us toward using that favor, then we go ahead and use the favor. Now, we're missing one thing from this whole equation, by the way. Stability. So we need actually a stability variable here. So here we have the loyalty 1. And stability is going to be a very marginal consideration here. I'm thinking you either need bad or really bad stability to really induce the AI to take these favors, because they don't give a heck of a lot. Well, they can give a decent amount, but not. They shouldn't be like the main consideration, right? So, if limits stability does not equal 1, then we're going to change the favor give weight, but not by 1, by 1.25, say. Then we're going to take this again. We're going to repeat it. Oops, what did I do? There. If it's not 0, which means it's -1 or lower, another 0.25. Let's do this the easy way now. Boom. If it is not -1, and if it is not -2, all right, this is where we start cranking it up. If you are at the bottom of the barrel and you really need stability, then yeah. Peter, are you talking to me or to the token? There. All right, so I'm pretty happy with this. So it was okay, token. As a reminder, since we basically started training the AI this week, we have created, good God. We've created, still getting there, with emotions and with scripted effects, about 2,500 lines of code, specifically to train AI to use these interactions. So you can see how serious I am about properly training the AI to use pop features, but you can also see how long it can take. Every time you make one of these features, so every time someone's like, hey, Demi, why don't you make this cool feature? Not only is it going through my mind what I would have to do to create the feature itself, but then I'm also going through all the stuff I'd have to do to get the AI to use it in a way that doesn't become, a cinder block around their neck. And most mods, honestly, don't really focus very much on training the AI. They're like, hey, look at this cool thing, and then, yeah, Elysian, it will make a huge difference. Trust me. Just with my test game last night, it made a huge difference with stability for the AI. So I'm thinking, squeak. Sorry. I'm thinking that with the next beta, you guys should see hopefully significantly better AI, and that's without a lot of the refinement we need to do to this type of thing. The key to making an adaptive AI is to make AI decisions as squishy and non-random as possible. When I say squishy, I mean versatile in the way that they are reacting to all of the pertinent things, but within a certain resistance range. Anyway, I have no idea whether that made any sense. Okay, so we have GN favors. We're not done. By the time we're all done with this, we're going to have about 4,000 lines of code, I think. But I like doing this. I enjoy writing this type of code, so it's like no sweat to me. I know for a lot of developers this would be difficult. It would take them a long time because it would be difficult to get excited about it, But I find it exciting and interesting. So I could sit down any day of the week and work on this type of stuff indefinitely. After a while, when you get the creative bug when it comes to coding, there's even kind of a tactile feeling that feels good. I've never shot up heroin or anything like that, but I know people who have, and after a while, you associate the good feeling of the heroin with the actual needle going into your arm and the injection. So if you actually just were like to inject just warm water, it would still feel good because of the association with the good feeling. And so after a while, when you do this kind of creative stuff for a while, the joy of seeing your work come to light, that joy is infused into also just the process of coding itself, at least what I've found. Demian were paid $1 for a line of code written. He'd be a millionaire right now. Yeah, different things exhaust different people. Modding is heroin. To me, it is. So it depends. And Lithium, this type of thing to me used to be extremely frustrating and boring and tedious. My assumption was that I could never learn to enjoy the code. And it always felt that way for a long time. But once you find that thing which excites you and you get in the habit, it's fun when it's done. That's how I used to feel, Elysian, but it doesn't have to be that way. You have to develop a habit in your brain in a way, in order to be able to commit to these types of creative projects and continually. And once you start waking up in the morning feeling like, I can't wait to do this again, that's when you're hooked. Yeah. So, all right. So we're in a good place. We have. So we've gotten all the weights that we need. Um, Now I'm gonna pull from some of my other stuff I did up here. Where is it? I need to go further. I need to go to Greater Noble. I'm gonna borrow this code. Here we go. Yeah, listening. That's the thing, you find your passion. But I feel the same way when it comes to teaching kids. I love teaching. I got the same feeling when I was when I was a professor. Um, I got the same feeling, with my high school dual enrollment students and stuff like that. Um, it was exhilarating to see them learn and get excited about the subject and stuff like that. So everyone has to find, everyone has a place. And it's just a matter of finding where that place is, and then you'll thrive at the thing that you do. I'm certain of it. So this is more of a template. Yeah, I taught biology, anatomy, and physiology. But I brought a lot of games. I made up games that we played, and yeah, we had a lot of fun. I made up a bunch of it was like if we had to learn about evolutionary biology, for instance, we create like a natural selection game, and people would have different attributes, and they would all role play as birds, competing over things, and then they would kill each other and stuff like that, or they'd outcompete each other, and they would evolve and adapt, and based on different mutations. A lot of fun. Yeah, lecturer. I mean, professor. I did not have a PhD, so I wasn't a tenured professor or anything like that. But so it was more of a lecturer type of thing, where you teach classes but not be doing the academic end stuff. I was doing the academic end stuff too, but in the United States now there's a move away from tenure track type stuff, and then they just have you do all the stuff you'd normally do, but without job security. That's why I said fuck this. Um, so anyway, more than you wanted to know, I'm sure. It's unfortunate because I really wanted to be an academic because I loved, I love not obviously I love knowledge. I love stuff like that. Um, I love learning. I love generating knowledge, creating knowledge. But it's a very hostile environment right now for the United States if you want to go into academia. And with budget cut fever, if you look at the recent budget that the president proposed, it just guts science completely. So there's no money anywhere. It's like so I was working on hermit crabs, actually, vacancy chain theory. Um, and vacancy chain theory, interestingly, is a concept simultaneously in economics and biology. Same concept, but works in both cases. Um, and the principle is with vacancy chain theory is you have um, uh, when you have one individual who searches for a new home. Once they find that new home, they actually create a positive externality for everyone else who is also looking for a home, because once you find a new home, you vacate your old one, right? And so your old home that's undesirable becomes the new desirable home for somebody else, and it creates value for everyone else who is looking for homes. And so the more people in a housing market, for instance, looking for a home, the more likely each individual who is looking for a home will be able to find one, because you have a higher home turnover and other people, once other people leave their homes to find a new one. Well, this same exact principle occurs with hermit crabs. Because hermit crabs are crabs that live inside of gastropod shells, which they themselves did not make. And so the more individuals you have in a cluster who are looking for new shells, the more likely any individual ends up finding a better home. This also creates a lot of other unexpected but advantageous behaviors. So for instance, if a bunch of hermit crabs want to eat a living gastropod, it doesn't make sense for any one of them to go after that living gastropod and take its shell and eat it. But when you take a whole bunch of hermit crabs, suddenly it can be worthwhile for the hermit crabs to eat the gastropod, because once they eat it, not only do they get the meat, but the shell opens up. Someone jumps into that shell, leaving behind an old shell. Everyone else can then analyze that shell. When someone can jump in, their old shell leaves behind. So you have almost like a fractal effect of generating value. The more individuals you have partaking in that behavior. Anyway, that was that was a waste of time. It's 3 o'clock. That's what I was working on, what I was interested in, were these types of relationships. As I said, screw it, I'm not making enough money, I want a family, and so I left that behind. Okay. What was I doing? Yeah, biology and economics are fascinatingly similar. And markets work very similarly to ecosystems. I think economics can learn so much from biology. That's part of why I want to work on a fantasy simulator, because I can take concepts from biology, I can take concepts from economics, I can integrate them into the system, and for the first time create an actual integrated model that can be manipulated to explore these concepts in academia. And so it's kind of a way to indulge my academic professorial side, and with having you guys around, it's kind of also like having my students. So it's kind of cool. It feels kind of good. Actually, very interesting, sir. Cool. I'm glad someone thinks so. That's interesting, actually. You're a genuinely bright individual. I mean, thank you. So let's see. Yeah, I'm like super nerd in every way. It's great. So if any one of these 3 are true, I'll do any 3 of them need to be true? Yeah, I think they do. So if any 3 of these are true, I can then commence the next calculation. Favor. Suddenly, star models seem slightly less interesting than 10 minutes ago. No, astrophysics is still extremely interesting, minus all of the math involved. That's the funny thing, is I got into biology thinking that there wouldn't be math. Wrong. There was a lot of math. And so it's kind of like, in my attempt to avoid math, eventually I got dragged into it and then kind of found that I enjoyed it, especially as it pertains to statistical analysis and stuff like that, and structural equation models and you know. See, math is fun. Math is fun when I do it like this. When I build it myself from the ground up and I discover mathematical concepts by having to use them. That's the way I've always succeeded. Whereas sitting in a freaking math classroom, fuck it, man. I hate it. Hate it. Math is everywhere. Spare me your cliches, Strategos. Nah, I do like math. I just don't like the way that math is so often taught in classes, where it's completely abstracted and removed from reality. And then if you end up sucking at it, sucking at the way they want you to learn it, then you go through life thinking that you're bad at math. It took me until I was 28 years old before I realized I actually liked math. Yes, Badkins. Statistics is math easy street in most cases. All right, so I got to choose which favor is the most important. So we're going to start out here with nobleman. Whoops. And then we're going to compare that to present gift and corruption. If this returns as true, then we are going to take give weight, and we're going to have that altered by favor GN honor nobleman weight. There we go. And then we are going to favor honor nobleman soon. I mean, do you, math classes are terrible, the worst. People get traumatized. My math schools because they make you learn in their own pace and not yours. Absolutely, Petra. Since math is incremental, if you miss something, you don't get the rest. Yeah. That's so true, 'cause especially when you're watching a math lecture and you're sitting in the class, you're like, pay attention, Demian, pay attention, Demian, pay attention, Demian. Ooh, look, a butterfly. And then you come back and you're like, crap, I missed that one part, so now the rest of the goddamn math class is just going to go way over my head. Happened every single freaking time. And in grad school, when I finally, what made me finally good at math was when the lecture was recorded. So I would just stop the lecture when I missed a part and go back, watch it again, and then it was like, no problem. But, all right. Demian, do you think the entire way we go about education is broken? Yes, Ethan. It favors it favors the aptitude of like 1/5 of people, specifically those that are good at focusing in class and grinding away at material like it's grinding for gear in World of Warcraft. That's basically the model that most American education, at least, is based off of. And then all the people who have creative minds, all the people who are hands-on type people, they all get screwed, and then they think that they suck at life. And it's really unfortunate. When I was lecturing and not professorializing, because I guess I wasn't a professor, I would go out of my way to try to notice when students had other types of aptitudes, and grade them more leniently based on skills beyond simply what answers they gave on a test. All right, give weight else. Otherwise, we go ahead and we check for present gift, and then we compare that to the other variables. Son of a bitch. Present gift. So then, present gift, change variable, favor weight, and then favor presents gift soon. Set country flag. Okay, that's good. I'm going to finish my train of thought here first before I answer any more people's questions and stuff. Oh, here come the Mongols. Doing that. Do it again. After a while, when you've been sitting at the keyboard for too long, your brain starts to not quite operate the way it should. And then give weight, favor give weight, favor give weight. Looks good, looks good. Change favor corruption soon. and this should be irrelevant. There. Yeah, statistics should be the first advanced math taught in school, for sure. And that's the most pervasively relevant to just everyone's everyday life, too. It says you, Peter. The real math begins with universe. I'm still working on 1 plus 1. It's true, Elysian. Yeah, I wonder why kids get traumatized by school maths. They don't seem to get that from most other subjects. It's funny too because when people, it's like when someone's bad at math, they wear it as like a badge of honor. I'm bad at math. Oh, you're bad at math too. Yeah, I'm bad at math. Yeah, we're both bad at math. Yeah, we're both stupid. But apply that to like another subject like reading. It's like no one says I don't know how to read. Yeah, you don't know how to read. Yeah, we both don't know how to read. That's great. No. Does not exist. Only math is like the subject that no one really, feels ashamed of not understanding. One plus one is three, obviously. Okay, my math is done then. Thank you, Strategos. Yeah, I guess so, Alex. But no one would be proud of not knowing how to read. I've been ashamed my entire life that I've don't have natural mathematical aptitude the way that the way that you would do it in school. Everyone knows that 1 plus 1 is 11. Uh-oh, we can't criticize Trump. We don't want to make this political, even though I tend to do it sometimes too. Not everything about Trump is bad. I'm just gonna put that out there. Even though I obviously announced that I was not a supporter of Trump. Okay. So, what the heck was I doing? Triggered. Kofifi. Kofifi labor. Not to speak of his character or anything like that, but so there's certain things that need to be reformed in the U.S. system. So I'm generally pro-immigrant, right? But there are certain things with the H-1B visa system that we have in the United States that's kind of screwy. Insisting that NATO members pay their 2%. There's things like that are good points. So I'm not gonna deny that those are good points just because I'm not a fan of Trump. A good idea is a good idea, and some things, entitlements in the United States need to be reformed and things like that. If we could just go about it with a moderate approach, then that would be the ideal solution. Good luck with that ever happening, right? Okay, so I need to collect all of these flags here that I have. Yeah, sure, Peter. Yeah, there's interesting thing about the whole 2% NATO thing is that in a lot of cases, if the United States paid 2% and all of the other members paid 2%, it would technically be in the United States' favor because NATO generally buys weapons made by the United States, so it's just one giant, support of U.S. industry. So it's not technically a fair number anyway, but that's kind of beside the point. Yes, Cryo Shakespeare. Eventually, we're going to have a military estate. And the interesting thing is, not only will you be able to finance them over time, but the military estate, and then get better troops and stuff like that. But the military estate will become a power unto its own and unto itself. And soon it will begin to expect you to maintain funding, or it will demand that you increase funding, or it's, can do things like that, pressure you into behaving certain ways. The most august Caesar. No, I agree with you. I agree with you on that point. Um, and in U.S. politics, we have this cancerous mentality that government can't do anything right, and so you should just destroy it at every chance you get. By the way, I'm like a federalist. I'm a states' rights type of person. Um, for a large country like the United States. But even then, I'm not going to pretend that the government can't do anything right, or that it's useless, or that you should just destroy it and then everything would be better. Like, that's crazy. But that's where we are in politics. And so when you say things like, a safety net or things like that, people are like, socialism. They don't analyze the merits or the advantages or disadvantages. They just jump to conclusions. It's really pretty unfortunate, because there should be so much more nuance when we're analyzing what we should do for a country's well-being. Special states, the pirate estates. Obviously, you have to do the tribes and freeholders. Yeah, pirates. Only if we get advanced federalism and MT. I don't understand the allergy to socialism either. Um, Obviously, large countries like the United States, we're an artificial country. We're more like 11 countries all in one. So it doesn't make sense to have a super centralized government enforce the same rules on everybody. Some rules, obviously, it makes sense, but it makes sense to defer to local governance for different states and stuff like that. Um, but you can also come up with lots of meritorious arguments as it pertains to making sure everyone has the same opportunity, or at least comparable opportunities, so you have social mobility, so that you can have a true meritocratic system. Right now in the United States, we're pretty much moving toward an oligarchy, where the privileged maintain their privileges, and then skilled people who are born in crappy circumstances never get to realize their skills or bring those skills to bear as far as productivity is concerned, and that's really bad for the economy. Hey man, awesome your stream. Why do you say the U.S. is more like 11 countries? Actually, there was a good infograph a while ago, because the culture. I mean, the cultures are so different throughout the United States, and the mentalities. And West Coast is pretty different from the East Coast, which is different than the Rust Belt, which is different from the Bible Belt, which is different from South Florida, which is there's just so many different mini countries. U.S. actually. Yeah, this was a great little article. I'll post it in dang it! No, I don't want to. I don't want to look at Business Insider. Go away. Here we go. This is a good little blog that should show you. Let's see. And so anyway, the idea, what I was saying is politically it makes sense to have more decentralized system where those individual culture groups and those individual different states which have different interests than other states are able to have a certain degree of autonomy. So I'm all about federalism and everything for the United States, but it's really the politics of the right has gone pretty wild lately. It's I hope the left doesn't go super far left either, because then we're really screwed. Did the way the elective monarchies get heirs change? I don't know. Okay. All right, so let me sort this final little bit out. Fire event, fire event, fire event. Found a potential problem here. Let's see. Else good. I think these should be else. I've probably changed this like a billion times before. Else. Yeah, else. Else. Yeah, I screwed up my demands. I'm gonna go back and fix that real quick. Yeah, there we go. It's a fringe. It'd be a fringe case in which I'd end up having flags accumulating. It would start adding random elements to the AI's decision making. So that's good that I fixed this here. Should be demand pretense of alone. Okay, so I think I got all my else's in order. Good. Yeah, harem countries have disputed succession because in a lot of cases there was not necessarily a codified legal precedent for inheritance and rulership. You frequently had the ruler who would pick a favorite, and his favorite wasn't necessarily his oldest born. It wasn't necessarily, and so anyone could easily challenge the legitimacy of whoever was the favored. Peter Weiss, Demian, you barely have a left. By European standards, that would be true. Oh, and that's exactly what you said. I mean, you go to California, go to Seattle, go to New England, and they're basically moderate European. They're center left European politically wise. By the time the Ottoman government doesn't have an heir until the ruler is about 30 years old. Okay. So we got all of our else's in there. Let's try and finish this favor. Oh, what we have to do. Theoretically, should favors come before? Should favor consideration come before privileges? I think so, actually. Cryo Shakespeare. I think Fareed Zakaria wrote a great book Preet Zakaria is one of my favorite geopolitical analysts. I'm sure he'll have an addendum to this book, The Post-American World. It was a fantastic book. It's a bit older, 2009. I'm sure he has an updated version, but I thought his perspective I thought was really good. Yeah, Ethan Finley. I mean, that's kind of so university intolerance is kind of a separate issue. You can be liberal but still be authoritarian, right? And campuses, U.S. university campuses tend to be very authoritarian about enforcing their ideology, which is really the biggest problem I have with the left currently in the United States. Like if you deviate from the campus postmodern perspective, you get purged. And I encountered that like myself at my university 10 years ago. I That's the thing, is that's separate from the scientific academic community on campuses. They're pretty centrist for the most part. But then you get to the postmodern sociological women's studies crowd. They tend to be very, very forceful about their perspective. And if you express that you think differently, then you're in for quite a ride. And I experienced that firsthand by I went to a feminist student union meeting at one point, and I thought like, oh, I believe in equal rights and things like that. I should belong at this kind of organization. And I'd made a comment at one point about how, I said something about men having Y chromosomes and women having two X's, and that there were biological differences between the sexes, genetically and everything. And that just like exploded the room, and I got driven out on a rail because Y chromosomes are a social construct or something. So I experienced it firsthand, Ethan, so I totally sympathize there. Yeah. But the scientific crowd does not, at least what I found on U.S. campuses, the scientific crowd does not get along very well with the postmodern crowd. E.O. Wilson, the founder of sociobiology, he was a really nice guy. I worked in his lab for a while at the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C. He was at Harvard, but he had an ant lab at Smithsonian. He was lambasted by that crowd 30 years earlier. Even though he was a pretty liberal guy, he was still torn to pieces for his idea that human behavior is actually an adaptation in evolutionary terms, and that was considered heresy. It's hard to plant ideological purity into math. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, but not to deviate, but it's nice to have a political discussion that doesn't descend into shouting at each other and calling each other names. Okay, favors. But no, I understand, Ethan. There's issues with the American left. There's also issues with the American right. It's hard to find a home. I feel like a political orphan in the United States for the most part. Let's see. All right, so this should fire the event. What I need now is I need to go over the interactions. I need to then set the flags. So if you recall, in my demands, I had these AI factor thingies. Let's head up to set up the favors again. And then we can use this as a template to inform AI behavior. I'm going to purge all of the old code. I'm going to get rid of this flag right here. I'm going to make a list of all of these flags over in the corner on another screen. Astrophysics too. It's a bit difficult to get all of that worked up about quite a bit of political stuff when you've had cosmology. It's true, Peter. It's like, why does it matter so much on this pale blue dot here when so much is happening elsewhere in the universe? I still don't think we have had an unfriendly discussion on these streams, so it's all good. Yeah, you know, the number one rule of streams is you're like not supposed to talk about politics, because then, you know, people who like you that then hear your politics are different than theirs and say, I am unsubscribing to your you know, insert political pejorative. You know, like I say, I've got something bad. I've got criticism for everyone. I don't subscribe to one political side exclusively or the other. It's supposed to end at 3:40, so I got 2 minutes. Yep, I agree, Strategos. Extremists are just as illogical wherever you find them. The people that make the most sense are always huddled around the middle, whether they're a little bit left or a little bit right. Yeah, and it is a small stream with a relatively niche audience. And honestly, anyone who would come in here that would start shouting political slogans, they're probably assholes anyway, so I don't mind them being repelled. Just like people who can't handle, you know, watching me and Ellie play My Little Ponies. If you can't handle it, I don't want you here. All right, so I gotta get this done before I leave. All right, so I made the flags. Honor noblemen soon. Once this gets used, I need to remove the flag as well. CLR country flag. I bet you right now Flopsy is yelling at me in my Slack, in the developer Slack channel, saying, I told you not to talk about politics. You'll destroy your audience. Okay, so Magnificent Gift. Actually, I'm going to move this over so I have it as well. You can't see what I'm doing off screen, but okay, and then present Magnificent Gift. CLR country flag equals ever present gift soon. Okay, that should do it. They get the dice fan. Pony streamer riot. Yeah, this is good. I enjoy everyone's company here. It's pretty fun. I'm glad that it's enjoyable for other people. Man, my big fear was like developing like this. It's just gonna scare everybody away, and it would end up being a distraction. But this is kind of good because it's good to be a little bit distracted from time to time, because otherwise you might be tempted to check Facebook or something like that. But this seems to work as a suitable means of getting a little bit of a distraction without too much of it. Thank you, Petreo. $333. I mean, I presume a lot of people are playing their own games as they're watching. Okay, so looks like we're at the practical limit of what we can do before I go to work. I will rush through work. I have approximately 600 gallons worth of saltwater tanks to deal with. If I do get back before 7:30, I still gotta get the girls down with my wife and set a few things up. But around 8 o'clock, I'm hoping I can keep streaming and try to finish up these favors now that I have a successful template for them. Not too much code either. It's only about 400 lines of code. I'm basically going to have the same thing for lesser nobles. I'll have to make new weighted considerations for burghers. But after that, I have all the favors done. And so once that's done, we have resolved most of these. We've done revoke privileges, we've done demand support, offer, bestow privileges. So we're good. I do need to eventually revise the AI's warfare, offensive war and defensive war considerations, but I could probably slough that off and try to finish canals. I'll do a straw poll at some point and see what people want to see most next. Need to add state corruption. Yeah. Okay, anyway. I better get going. Thank you for tuning in, as always. I hear the Mongols coming. So I'm going to go ahead and end it now. Thanks.